climate change is really a result of how we have been living for a really long time. And that when we get into some of the deeper issues, we're really talking about patriarchy, we're talking about colonization, we're talking about imperialism, we're talking about worldviews of domination over others, over nature. And I think it's really important when we have these conversations to look at both this deeper analysis and these longer issues that we're working on, long-term issues, as well as how they are manifesting in our actions or in these international policy spaces. And I love the fact of the way frontline communities particularly are bringing these deeper issues to the forefront, because it's not a time to be timid. This is not a time for theory. This is actually a life and death situation for at least a lot of the colleagues and women's communities that we work with all over the world. I think it's really important to be in context to the sort of stack up of these issues that are very deep around how we've been living for a very long time and how we're going to unwind the situation and the struggles and solutions that are being offered by people who are the most impacted, because I think those are where the answers really exist. Women are the most negatively impacted by climate change and environmental degradation, and yet at the same time, on the other side of that, is that they're really key to solutions. There's a very strong link, of course, between climate change and impacts and poverty, and who gets impacted first and worst. And women are at the bottom, unfortunately, of the rung. And so when environmental disasters hit, women are impacted the most. Also because women in many parts of the world are continued to be denied their rights, even the right to learn how to swim or have a certain kind of financing or ownership of property, to be able to care for themselves, access to even be able to voice their needs. So we're really seeing that there's a tremendous need to lift up these women's voices and to support them in their struggles. There's about 26 million people since 2010 that have been displaced by climate change. Of those 26 million, 20 million of them are women. It just shows you some of this disproportionate impact. At the same time, the women that we work with all over the world, one of the first things they'll say to us is, you know what, we are not victims, we are the solutions. And I think that's really important to stress, because as an example, and I know some of you here in the audience are very involved with food issues, between 60 and 80% of all household food production in the developing world is done by women. So we have these big conversations about food sovereignty and food security. This is not going to happen without women. And one last component of that I think is really important is that when we look at climate change and these huge problems of environmental degradation, it's natural to think that we need these large-scale solutions to solve it. I mean, it's natural to think that. But as so many groups are now saying, and we're seeing on the ground, it's actually these small-scale solutions that are producing the results we need. Localizing our economies, localizing our food shed. Well, it turns out that actually women are key to these localized circular economies, these local food production systems, because they have the social capital and the knowledge to do it, and they've been carrying this knowledge for a really long time. We're really looking at systemic change. It is so important to know, how are we going to introduce ideas that are going to get us out of this corporate structure that we're engaged in, that are going to move us away from market mechanisms, move us away from the financialization and commodification of nature. How do we get Mother Earth, nature, our trees, our forests, our water out of the marketplace? And how do we move off this capitalist system that is based upon endless economic growth models? This is the question we're really grappling with. Tonight I want to share about the International Rights of Nature Tribunal. Nature is based on the idea that nature is not property. And how do we start living in a way that nature has rights equal to human rights? I think this is something that we really need to take deep into our heart and our spirit, is to understand that we're not here just defending nature, but we are nature, and we are nature lifting up right now. We are Mother Earth's immune system standing up for the web of life. And I think that's very inspirational for all of us to do our work this year. Thanks.